And
is here and joining me.
Donald here.
And this is our I Ching Conversations for May 2026. And we are following Eve Smyth's book, I Ching Predictions for 2026. So let's start out, Donald, with a review of April because the month was one hexagram, great excess. And when we move into May, we're going to have two hexagrams to talk about. So, great excess. How did that show up for you? I know it talked about at the end of the month cracks and things showing up in the foundation. Be careful, that kind of stuff. What did you experience during April?
I don't know if you found it this way, but I felt like I didn't have any energy in April. It was almost like a rest period, not doing anything. Maybe that was part of my cracks in a foundation, trying to do too much before in life, and then it all catching up with me. I was paying attention to cracks and flaws and instability in your life, so this could have even been take a walk around your house if you see any cracks in the foundation and stuff like that. Or it could have been in relationships. I don't know, you have someone in your life where if you say one little thing, they go off the handle. The main thing was like not to get involved with it because if you get sucked into the drama or if you get sucked into the crack, then you're going to get pulled down with the foundation and everything coming down if you try to fix it. It was like pivoting and sidestepping these things to not make them unbearable or unmanageable. How did you find April?
I came into April after having a major fall the end
Mm.
of March. So I had health issues to deal with. It was a time of recovery. April was resorting things, trying to get my act back together again. And I think I succeeded by the end of the month. But like you, I slowed down some. It was tomorrow is another day. I can work on it tomorrow. And if it doesn't happen, I'll work on it the next day. And it was okay.
Yeah.
So, how about for you?
I reorganized my living space to be better suited for living. I did stuff, I just didn't do what I thought I was going to do in April.
And was that okay at the end of the month?
Yeah.
Did you have any stress or anything about that?
Well, your mind will always argue with you about how much you've gotten done and where it thinks you should be. I don't say I don't listen. I listen to it, but I don't obey it because it's just telling me a bunch of silly stuff. April was also a chance to reconnect into my intuition. I don't know if you felt that way as well. I felt to move through April, you needed more intuition than a logical mind.
Could you give an example of how that showed up for you?
Like cleaning up my space and moving things around. It was more of an intuitive hit. I should move this here, and this would feel better over there. And then also in April, some people came in through YouTube, and I joined another community for a month on how to manifest. The help that comes in April, I believe when I reviewed it, it was they're not going to fix the problems for you. They're going to be there as more of a support rather than someone to come in and save you from anything. Did anyone come in for you in April? Anything new?
Like you said, it was trusting more my feelings. If I
Yeah.
felt tired, resting. And
Yeah.
if I felt energized, it's okay to do stuff. And I started doing more gardening. I had stopped that because I hurt myself. I couldn't garden, but doing just a little bit and getting pleasure out of that. I haven't had a chance to get into trouble with
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah, I feel like I kept out of trouble in April. That was a good thing. I found doing other things other than focusing on the bad stuff, that was like the pivot. If something's not working, focus on something else.
That's a good segue into
Hmm.
May. Eve
Hmm.
writes about how you know the energy is shifting into May. So you'll know the energy is shifting towards May prevailing, which is the first hexagram that we're going to talk about, when the tension of instability begins to give way to a sense of expansion. So you may notice more openness in relationships, greater willingness to collaborate, or momentum building around projects that feel aligned. Where April pressed you to step away, to let go, and release, May invite you to step forward with clarity and the ability to successfully build on the rock solid foundations you build through your work in April. Let's talk about hexagram 19, which is prevailing. If you could
Yes.
take it from here.
Sure. In May, we're going to experience two hexagrams, the first being prevailing, which is hexagram 19. Prevailing is about the influence and persuasion through being vulnerable rather than force, like openness, honesty, being vulnerable, being sincere. And then later in the month of May, it's going to move into hexagram 34, which is called Great Injury, which is funny because things start to ease up and then it's, oh, but be careful. The energy is going to sharpen in May to great injury. This could be harm or fighting. I want to talk a little bit about human design too, with respect to these two gates. So, gate 19 is the gate of wants and needs and being sensitive. I think that's where the energy is going to open up, being sensitive to other people, being sensitive to your own needs. And then it goes right into gate 34 or hexagram 34, which is about personal power and displays of personal power. We're going to see a lot of people maybe bullying, or there's going to be this bully energy once you gain the influence. Watch who's bullying and who's just remaining sincere and nice. And when things don't go their way, they're not getting upset. Are we controlling ourselves or are we going to frustration and stuff like that?
About the energy of prevailing, do you feel that you have moved into May's energy?
Yeah, there's certain things in my life that the marker has moved forward, things that I felt were stuck. Now they're starting to give way, so I feel like I'm making some progress there. There's some expansion. I finally see the light at the end of the tunnel in certain cases. Although there's still a lot of uncertainty, but it's starting to open up here and there. I've started a meeting with a friend for coffee each week, and that's been really helpful. We're working on our businesses together. There's certain things that are good. And I'm just going to watch out for the later May energies. And even astrologically, we talk about the end of May being like some big things are coming. It all aligns with Eve's book and what she's saying. The sky clock is aligning with that too.
That's so interesting because Eve always says throughout the chapters and at the beginning of the book, this is collective energy that she's talking about. It's not a personal prediction, but it's the influences. And you're talking about astrological influences. These are the big themes of the world, the
Mm-hmm.
energy, the environment around us, and the world around us. I feel like I've moved into prevailing where things got easier just on a personal level with getting home, getting things done, moving forward. I want to be careful about the movement great injury, having had a fall, stepped on a crack kind of thing into March, April's energy. So I'm a little leery about the coming of that energy.
With the 19th hexagram, you've got prevailing. So things are going to open up. Things are going to start feeling like easing off the gas pedal. Things are running more smoothly. And actually, astrologically, I think there's a big transit because Uranus was in Taurus, and I think it's Uranus in Gemini now. So the energy is opening up for more fixed signs. I'm just learning about those myself. Out of the 12 astrological signs, there's four fixed signs. There's four mutable signs, but the other four signs, yeah, they mean something else. That's one thing I'm actually want to learn more about is astrology and how we're moving through these different signs and how the signs in each planet can impact what's going on.
When you think of it, the energy's all around us. I forget about that. I'm living my life. I just have a fixed idea of the path and what I should be doing, blah, blah, blah. But there are all these influences. For example, we're getting ready to drive back from Williamsburg this past weekend, and there are wildfires all over Georgia and North Florida. Smoke as far as Atlanta, which is up close to the North Carolina, Tennessee border. Are we going to be able to get home? It was almost as if we had moved into prevailing because by the time we got on the highways and came down, it was clear. It was easy. It just rolled along, even though there's still places burning and they're still fighting these forest fires.
Do you think that's from a lack of maintaining the forests?
No, severe drought
Okay.
in
Oh,
the
okay.
southeastern United States. And what happens, we have a lot of pine forests, and it only takes a lightning
So part of it could be human, part of it could just be nature, lightning
strike.
storm.
Right.
Okay.
People forget in Florida, we have a lot of phosphate and minerals in the limestone ridge, and it draws lightning. There's certain parts of Florida where there are a lot of lightning strikes when there are thunderstorms. So depending on the environment, how dry it is, etc., it could set something off.
It almost sounds like a perfect storm sometimes then. Mhm.
Exactly. Again, cycles. We were talking last time about
Mhm.
cycles. These things tend to cycle. You'll have so many years it's rainy and wet and people forget. And then you've
Mhm.
got very dry. When I was growing up, the Everglades were on fire for several years. Who would have thought? You think of that as a big swamp in part of South Florida, but it was so dry. I guess the point was that there's so many factors in our external environment that are certainly out of our control, but we don't think about it until we're in the middle of a situation like a wildfire. And certainly they've been experiencing that in California. And I think even in parts of Canada, I believe you've
Mhm.
had some significant wildfires. The earth has its own cycles and the weather have their own cycles. And all of this influences us, I think, in
Mhm.
terms of mood and energies and certainly our food supply, the animals, everything.
And just to get on that topic too, when I'm learning about manifestation, which is also scientifically proven, when you think about quantum physics, when you focus on something, it becomes real, but when you're not watching it, it just becomes a potential, like the observer effect. That's like manifestation. If you keep on focusing on things like the news or bad things, you'll just make those part of your reality. So that's one thing I've been doing is avoiding focusing on things like that. It opens up a potential for something different to happen, or even making a different choice in your own life. So that goes with when you were talking, I was getting the message control. We try to control the burning of the fires and the forests and stuff, but really, do we have that much control over what happens? Almost like you got to let go and whatever happens and happens. I think a lot of people fight with that.
We've seen that in California. It's beyond the capacities of all dropping water from helicopters and planes. It makes not a dent. It just spreads. So you wonder if you can't control it, what do you do if it's a threat? If
Mhm.
you perceive it as a threat in your area, if it's coming to you, I guess you flee, right?
This is where the intuition really picks up, right?
Yes,
Animals
yes.
know to leave an area before something happens, but human beings, we're so disconnected from our intuitive selves that we don't sense the change, the subtle changes in nature and stuff. I think more people are waking up to this. Maybe this is just helping us develop our intuition too. When you get the call, oh, I feel like something's going to happen in my neighborhood, to raise the alarm, then we should be moving out of the neighborhood as a precaution.
If you have an intuitive strike
Yeah.
that I need to leave,
Mhm.
you should listen to it.
So the thing I struggle with intuition is it doesn't make sense. It's not an answer, it's just a feeling you have. So then it's, do you listen to it? Or because when you don't listen to it, I found most things go wrong when I don't listen to it. I used to do ice cream bike sales. There was these two guys across the road and I got a bad intuition about them. They're like, "Hey, come over here. Like we want to buy ice cream." But I knew that was not the case. But my mind was, well, you're selling ice cream and they want to buy ice cream. So if you don't go over there, you're not going to sell any. But when I went over there, they actually robbed me. My intuition was telling me, hey, don't go over there. Got a bad feeling. And your mind overrides that sometimes.
A lot of the time, I think we are
Hmm.
raised to have our mind override our intuition. And I know that's something we've talked about in previous chapters about developing one's intuitive senses and learning to trust them. And sometimes things shift. You may have a sense to flee, but then things shift. You
Hmm.
flee and then things shift, and everyone goes, why did you leave? You should have stayed. It's a catch 22 in a way.
I think it's about becoming more in tune with it. Over time, that sense to leave gets more accurate. When you're first developing it or starting to listen to it more, it's maybe not always 100%. It's about building trust in
Trust
yourself.
in yourself. We talked a little bit about sincerity and not using force to influence, but to come from an authentic position. There were a couple of questions that Eve had in the text that I wanted to share and maybe talk about. One was under movement 6, which is, as Eva said in the past, usually the 6th movement is some kind of a warning. So it's the discipline of honest influence. The idea is that all persuasion, if you are in a position to offer persuasion, should be anchored in integrity. Manipulation, even subtle, will corrode the foundations of trust. So this is, she says, your ethical compass. The reminder that persuasion without honesty collapses under its own weight. So ask yourself, why am I trying to influence this? What is my intention? If your motives are clear, your influence endures. If not, the lesson of great excess returns. Collapse follows overreach. The reflection was, how honest am I with myself and others about what I want? And is my influence aligned with who I want to be in the world? And that is a significant question. Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? What goes with it is, what is the legacy that I would like to leave, or that I came forward for in this life to leave? What do you think?
There's also an external part to this. We're going to be seeing people that are trying to be influential, and are their motives clear or not? So that'll be something to look at too, because it's all about trust at the heart of it. Will we be able to trust the people that are being influential or trying to be influential about what they're saying? Are their motives not clear, and then we can't trust them, so they can't lead or influence us? It'll be interesting. This is a good break off point to the next gate, because it tells you, well, if you can't trust them, maybe it's time for some personal power or fighting back, which is about displaying your power. But then you got to make sure that you're being clear with your motivations. Because one thing about Gate 34 is, if it's for the common good of all, fighting for something, if it's for everybody's benefit, is worth fighting for. But fighting for something, a selfish reason, for example, is not going to fly.
Talking about great injury now.
It's funny how the 19 moves into the 34 nicely. That's like the transition point.
And the movement 1 under great injury is resistance as warning. Usually it's movement 6 that's a warning, but here it's an invitation to notice resistance to plans and opportunities you were hoping to achieve. And during this time, the I Ching counsels, so here's the warning, that resistance indicates a hard stop. To continue in spite of this resistance is not good. In fact, it's detrimental. Could you think of an example of that?
In Canada, well, in Ontario, where I'm at, they recently put in, or they tried to put in, speed cameras everywhere, and they didn't really ask anybody. So much resistance to that. People were actually tearing them down, and they actually had to take them all down. So it's like the hard stop got overtaken by the power of the people, who basically very much opposed what was going on. That's just an example.
So it says all attempts during this time are not failures. They're corrections that will assist you in creating the right dynamic to eventually reach success. Movement 2, conditions feel favorable, but danger appears. Another warning. This whole thing is warnings.
Yeah. So you go from movement 1 where you're getting resistance, and then if you keep persisting, or if things start to seem favorable, oh, I'm gaining some ground here, it may be a false sense of gaining ground. Right? Then you got to think, I had resistance. You got to go back to that first movement and say, was there resistance? And was I just pushing through it or not? Because what it kind of says in this movement is to pivot or do something else when you're getting resistance. Stop pushing. What else could you do? An easy example is, if it's raining outside, like a thunderstorm, and you really wanted to walk your dog, then maybe you just vacuum the house while the rain's going on. Don't try to keep pushing in a crazy thunderstorm.
That's a great example. Movement 3 is anxiety in the collective. The collective would be all of us. And I get a sense of growing anxiety. And maybe it's because of all the conversations swirling around. If people are on social media, and it seems like the whole world, there's all kinds of anxiety. People are pushing all kinds of information out. And like you said, who knows if all of it's true or not,
Hmm.
but there's a certain level of fear. I thought it was really good in the book on page 103, where Eve talks about dealing with this anxiety because it's
Hmm.
all around you in the news and radio, social media, conversations of people. How do you create for yourself a sense of safety? Because it's easy to get caught up in all of that, to
Hmm.
lose your anchor or lose your bearings and
Hmm.
get swept away. And I think this is one of those examples of how the collective energy can realign your life in a moment. She had three specific actions that you can take when you're feeling off balance or anxious. The first one is to find solitude. So get
Hmm.
away from the noise, the chatter, all the conversations around you, and even the things that you do that currently are generating anxiety. Go a
Nature walk.
quiet place, go out into nature, go out into the yard, but by myself. The next thing is set the mood. You can influence your thinking by how you organize your environment around you. If there are things that make you anxious, like pictures that you put up years ago, but now it's creating anxious feelings, take it down and replace it with something else. Or the example, put up fairy lights. You can get those
Hmm.
very inexpensively at the store. They're kind of magical. Change the feeling and the mood of the environment. Play soothing music, some soothing classical or instrumental kinds of things. You can bring comforting objects in. If you like crystals, you can put beautiful crystals around. You can
Hmm.
have pillows or blankets, make it cozy, things like that. The last thing is grounding yourself. And I think nowadays we hear a lot about getting grounded, and that's breathe deeply and practice deep breathing and letting your body just settle and be still in the moment. And if you catch thoughts, thoughts just arise, but you can catch them and say, I'm going to just let that go like a cloud passing. And you can try other thoughts, or you can have a mantra that is soothing to you or puts you in a state of feeling comfortable or things like that. What would you add?
Love meditation for creating a sense of safety or stability. Breathing techniques as well. So just focusing on your breath. Maybe you can't find solitude. You're in your car and you're stuck in traffic. You can just take a couple of deep breaths. That'll give you like a sense of groundedness. Or like you said, you could even put on classical music in your car or something calming.
There's also, in terms of anxiety relief, creating a sense of safety is to scan your body. Close your eyes and just do a body scan. Do you notice any tension? Do you feel it in your neck? How about in your shoulders? And then to breathe into those areas, take a deep breath and breathe into those areas, as well as
Mhm.
moving mindfully. She talks about stretching or dancing or
Mhm.
yoga or some practices like that where you have movement that helps you in terms of rebalance and realign. So, movement four, redirect energy. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Redirecting energy, asking yourself, where can I channel my energy towards more attainable goals? If you're finding that you're hitting a wall or you're getting a lot of resistance, where could you be putting your energy? What I spoke about earlier, instead of going out for a walk when it's pouring rain, what else could you be doing with your energy at that time? Even if that's just reading a book. Maybe there's a book that you wanted to read for a few months. It could be doing some mindful cleaning, cleaning your home space. Mindfulness is going to be super important in May. Yeah,
Mindfulness.
mindfulness. So the energy is going to be driving us to want to fight for things. If you have to do the dishes, instead of complaining that everybody left them, maybe just doing them as a form of therapy. You're cleaning the space for yourself. It doesn't matter what the rest of your family is doing. That's mindfulness, or sweeping the floor, or even just making your space more comfortable.
Or folding clothes.
Yeah, folding clothes.
Simple. I find when
Something
you
repetitive.
mentioned doing the dishes, I enjoy washing the dishes and then drying them, putting them away. Somehow that whole process, I get lost in it and then it's
Mhm.
complete. And I feel a
Yeah.
sense of relief and kind of a flow of energy at the end of
Yeah.
it. Everybody has specific things. They've been doing them for years. It helps calm and recenter, rebalance. And that's really the whole point for trying
Yeah.
to interrupt that anxiety that's going to show up.
If you have some hobbies, like I've recently taken up a few hobbies that I had before just to calm the nerves. I don't know, you were saying maybe we were already into the gate 34, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. For each
Mhm.
of you, as you're watching this, you may think about prevailing and then great injury and the difference in the two energies and choose for yourself if you think you've already moved into great injury. I know
Mhm.
that sometimes it talks about there's going to be something where you get the hard stop and it could be a bodily injury. I know, for example, people have tripped and broken an ankle and are in a cast and they're immobilized for weeks. It's a way of slowing down. You can't do all the things that you normally did when
Yeah.
you're hurt. It's a way of recalibrating. It's dramatic, but sometimes we need a little drama to interrupt. If we're headstrong and going,
Mhm.
overextended, overwhelmed, things happen that interrupt that flow. It could be celebrated. I needed to stop and recalibrate and then start again or start a different direction.
There's almost like a soft love going on with first the awareness that you should be slowing down, and then a tough love when you actually injure yourself.
You didn't pay attention the first time. When we get overextended and overwhelmed, we get tired. We also have
Mhm.
anxiety. And that's really when you look at all the literature, etc., that's when people have car accidents. That's when they fall off of ladders. That's when they hurt themselves. And frequently it's at home or around in the
Mhm.
neighborhood. You can be distracted or focused so much on trying to push something forward while you're driving, thinking of all the strategies and stuff, that
Mhm.
you lose control of the car. You run into somebody or you go through a light that was clearly red. You didn't see it because you were someplace else. You were in your head thinking about something. It can be a very dangerous time if you don't interrupt that. Movement 5 was to rebuild and release. After harm or setback, release concerns, upset, anxiety you are holding from what's collapsed. Let it go.
Yeah.
I know that's hard. It's easy to say, oh,
It's
let
easy.
it go. Oh, it's my whole life, my future. How can,
Yeah.
but that's what there is to do is to
Mhm.
shift. I think that's when they talk about mindset,
Mhm.
shifting your mindset, your perception
Mhm.
that can be shifted. And when you change your mind, you change your life. Because you talked about this earlier, Donald, that you perceive differently. Different thoughts come in. And when that happens, the world occurs for you
Mhm.
differently. It's like, wow, that's such a gift and a skill to develop. And we don't think about it, but it's amazing.
When you're not stuck focusing on what went wrong, there's also the energy here to rebuild, right? So once you've identified, oh, this didn't work or that didn't work, you can come up with a practical solution and rebuild it even better. So it'll have an even more solid foundation.
Exactly. And the last movement, here's
Hmm.
another warning, too close to see clearly.
Mm.
When you're inside a problem, it may feel like there's no way out. I've had
Hmm.
that experience.
Yeah.
Step back, wait until conditions shift. And that's hard when you want to drive something forward, but you need to pull back. This is where those around you that you trust, like your friend at coffee, and trusted advisors and network for suggestions and guidance. Many times you need a voice from outside who can see things from a different perspective because you've tried and you're caught in your own trap.
Yeah, because we've all done this when we were younger. Maybe you got into a relationship with somebody and all your friends knew that they weren't good for you, but you didn't see it because you were in the relationship. You didn't take a step out of the relationship to see it for what it was. And
Right.
then all your friends tell you after it's over, oh, yeah, we already knew. You're like, what kind of a friend are you?
Right. Well, they told you, but you couldn't hear it.
Yeah, or you wouldn't listen to us anyways.
Right.
There's always that too.
That reminds me of the old saying, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger.
That's right.
Sometimes you have to go through stuff. And if you survive it and you choose to learn from it, you get stronger, you build different skills, you have a different perspective. The
Yeah.
last thing, special note, May is a very special month. So if you
Mhm.
have the book and you're following along, be sure to read on page 108 the special note that both prevailing and great injury are going to repeat during this year. And you think, oh, but what Eve says is when a hexagram returns in the cycle of a year, it is never random. A repeat is an invitation for deeper clearing and harmonizing. So think of the first appearance of prevailing and great injury as an initiation. The collective energy entered theme, and you are asked to engage with it for the first time. You may
Mhm.
notice resistance, awareness as surprise.
Mhm.
When it comes around again, it's integration. You are no longer meeting it as a stranger. You've already lived through the lessons once. The second encounter is an opportunity to observe how you've changed, where you're more prepared, where you may still struggle, and what you can now release with greater ease. We're going to repeat prevailing December, and we're going to repeat great injury in September. When you're repeating them, the collective is circling back and saying, have I really understood this? What lessons from prevailing? What is left for me to refine? And what can now be brought into balance that ready before when you first encountered it? Eve advises us to take notes, and this is where it's useful to write notes in the book so you can refer to them for the month, especially for the month of May, since both of these hexagrams are going to be repeating. When it comes around again, you can say, how have I grown or shifted? What feels easier? What feels challenging? What new insights and harmonies can I carry forward? So that you can really build on this. Closing thoughts, May. This is a month of contrast. And first, you may feel persuasive, influential, and aligned with opportunity, and the current will shift. The lessons of great injury remind us to step back, to release overextension, and to recognize harm as a teacher, not a disaster, as a teacher. There's an opportunity for learning. Together, the hexagrams are preparing us for June's energy, which is sincerity. And that's when authenticity, not influence or force, becomes the guiding principle. So, how will we know when the energy is changing?
We'll keep having interactions where you must practice honest and tactful conversations around how you see and interpret the world. This all lends to the beginning energies of May as well, where listening is going to be foundational for May. When you're listening to somebody, it's good to repeat to them your understanding of what they said or their exact words as you understood them. It shows that you're being present and listening to them. And the other thing is asking them. Sometimes people just want to be heard. They don't want a solution. So sometimes it's good to just ask, oh, are you just telling me because you need to get a weight off your chest? Or are you telling me because you were looking for something to solve?
Great tips. I just wanted to share with everybody that there's still opportunity to get the I Ching predictions for 2026. And there's a link below. You can order it through Amazon. Also, both Donald and Eve have Substack accounts. Donald shares his insights from his human design perspective, which he's also shared with us today. And Eve has conversations every month on her Substack channel about what she's experienced and more insights on the month for I Ching Predictions. Also on this channel, which is at Sanctum with Eve, she has what she calls a mini course at the beginning of each month. The one for May has already been posted. That gives you an opportunity to visit with Eve and listen to what she's talking about for the month of May, as well as joining us in the I Ching conversations. And we'd love to have you join us and share your insights in the comments below. Anything else you would like to add, Donald?
Sure. And if you're enjoying these conversations, hit the subscribe button as well, and you'll get notified as they come out.
That's great. Have a safe and productive May, and we will see you next time. We will be talking about June and sincerity.
Thank you,
Take
everyone.
care.
Bye.